There's a moment every mom knows. You're driving alone in the car, probably. The only time all day you're actually alone and a song comes on the radio. It could be any song, even a silly one, but suddenly there's a line, a melody, something that touches a deep place inside you that's been locked up for weeks, maybe months, and without warning, the tears start to fall. You don't even know exactly why you're crying. It's everything and nothing all at once. The accumulated exhaustion, the small disappointments, the feeling of running on a treadmill that never stops, the loneliness of being surrounded by people all the time but feeling completely alone. You quickly wipe your face when you realize you're pulling into the parking lot. Take a deep breath, reapply your lipstick, put the mask back on, because you have to pick up the kids, or get back to work, or meet someone, and nobody can see that you were crying in the car over some random song on the radio. So you tuck that moment away, push that emotion down along with all the others, and keep going. Because that's what you do. That's what you always do. But what if I told you that this exact moment, this broken and vulnerable moment you hide from everyone, is the place where God most wants to meet you? What if I told you that those tears you quickly wipe away before anyone sees are precious in His sight? What if I told you that the exhaustion you feel, the sense of being spiritually empty, might actually be the beginning of something you can't even imagine? If you've ever had one of these moments, and I know you have, stay with me. And before we continue, share this with a friend, because I guarantee she's also cried in the car and thought she was alone in it. Subscribe to the channel, because we're going to talk about what nobody talks about, the real, raw, unedited faith of women who are tired of pretending everything's okay. You know what the problem is with how we learn about faith? We grow up hearing stories of victories. David killed Goliath. Esther saved her people. Paul preached in prisons. Ruth was faithful and found Boaz. These are beautiful, inspiring stories, the kind that make you want to get up and conquer the world for Jesus. But you know what these stories rarely show? The days between the miracles, the weeks of waiting, the months of silence, the entire seasons where nothing seems to be happening and you're just... Nobody preaches sermons about David tending sheep for years before facing the giant. Nobody talks much about Esther having to go through a whole year of beauty treatments before even seeing the king. Nobody emphasizes that Paul spent 3 years in Arabia before he started preaching. We skip straight to the exciting parts, the moments of glory, the dramatic victories. And in the process, we create this expectation that the Christian life should be a constant series of mountaintop moments, intense experiences with God, visible joy, and unshakable faith. And then you look at your real life, you look at your ordinary Tuesday, your Saturday of doing laundry and grocery shopping, your Thursday night helping with homework while trying to figure out what to make for dinner. And you think, where is God in all this? Where is the glory? Where is the abundant life Jesus promised? Because all you see is exhaustion, routine, and an endless list of things that need to get done. But let me show you something that completely changed my perspective. Let me take you to a moment in Jesus's life that most people pass right by without really seeing. You know the story of Lazarus' resurrection, right? Jesus had 3 very close friends, Lazarus and his sisters, Martha and Mary. They lived in Bethany. And whenever Jesus passed through, it was at their house he stayed. It was the place where he could relax, be himself, rest. One day, Lazarus gets sick, seriously sick. The sisters send an urgent message to Jesus. Lord, the one you love is sick. John 11:3. Notice how they didn't even need to ask him to come. They just said he's sick because they were absolutely certain Jesus would drop everything and run to help. Because that's what you do for someone you love, right? When someone you love is in danger, you don't think twice. But Jesus didn't go. The Bible says when he heard about the sickness, he stayed where he was for 2 more days. 2 days while his friend was dying, while the sisters were desperate, caring for him, praying, waiting. looking out the window at every sound of footsteps, hoping to see Jesus arriving. But he didn't come. Lazarus got worse. And then Lazarus died, and Jesus still hadn't arrived. Imagine what Martha and Mary felt. The confusion, the pain, the sense of abandonment. Where was Jesus when they needed him most? They were certain that if he had come, if he had been there, Lazarus wouldn't have died. But he didn't come. And now it was too late. Have you ever felt like that? Like you prayed, trusted, waited, and God just didn't show up? Like he abandoned you exactly when you needed him most. You look at that situation in your life you've been asking God to change that broken relationship, that financial struggle, that rebellious child, that marriage that's falling apart, that illness that won't improve, and you think, God, where are you? I've been praying. I've been trusting. Why aren't you doing anything? Here's what Martha and Mary didn't know during those days of waiting, those days of keeping vigil by Lazarus's bed, those days of mourning after he died. Jesus had a bigger plan. He wasn't absent. He hadn't forgotten them. He was strategically waiting to do something much greater than simply healing an illness. He was going to raise a man who had been dead for 4 days. He was going to do something so impossible, so miraculous, that no one could attribute it to coincidence or nature. It would be undeniably an act of God, but they didn't know that while they were waiting, they didn't know that while they were suffering, all they knew was that Jesus hadn't come when they called, and now their brother was dead. And when Jesus finally arrived, Martha ran out to meet him, and the first words out of her mouth were, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." John 11:21. Do you hear the pain in those words? Do you hear the lament? It's not an angry accusation. It's a broken statement. Where were you? I needed you and you didn't come. And you know what's beautiful? Jesus didn't rebuke her. He didn't say, "How dare you question my methods?" He didn't give a theological explanation about his ways being higher than our ways. You know what the Bible says he did? Jesus wept. John 11:35. The shortest verse in the Bible. 2 words that change everything. Jesus wept. He cried with them. He felt their pain. Even knowing that in a few minutes he was going to raise Lazarus, even knowing the story was about to have a happy ending, he stopped and wept with them in their pain. This tells you something profound about God's heart. He's not indifferent to your suffering. He's not up there coldly looking at your pain and saying, "She'll learn a lesson from this." He weeps with you. He feels with you. He is near to the brokenhearted, Psalm 34:18. And even when he's working out something bigger than you can see now, even when he has a plan you don't understand yet, he doesn't minimize your pain. He enters into the pain with you. Are you hearing this? When you're in that car crying over a silly song, Jesus is there. When you're in the shower, letting the tears fall because it's the only place no one can hear you, he's there. When you're lying in bed, in the middle of the night with that weight on your chest that won't let you sleep, he's not distant. He's not disappointed in you. He's not impatient waiting for you to get over it. He's right there, weeping with you, feeling with you, as carrying you, even when you don't realize it. And here's something that will change everything. Just as he had a bigger plan for Martha and Mary, just as that painful wait was about to turn into powerful testimony, he has something bigger for you too. That situation that seems hopeless, he hasn't finished the story yet. That season of spiritual dryness, it's preparing you for something you can't see yet. That moment of brokenness in the car, it might be exactly the place where Christ's light is about to invade your darkness in a way you've never experienced before. Because here's the truth nobody told you. Light shines brightest in darkness, not in the brightness of day where everything's already illuminated, but in the dark where you can barely see your own hand in front of your face. A single candle seems like a beacon. A small light seems to change everything. And it's exactly in your darkness, in your weakness at your end, that the Lamb's light becomes most visible, most precious, most transformative. Think with me about how light works. When you turn on a light in a dark room, what happens? The darkness doesn't fight against the light. It doesn't resist, it simply disappears. Light doesn't have to struggle to overcome darkness. It just needs to be present. The very nature of light is to overcome darkness simply by existing. You don't turn on a light and wait a few minutes to see if it's going to manage to beat the dark. The second you flip the switch, darkness has already lost. That's what Jesus, the light of the world, John 8:12, does in your life. He doesn't need to fight your darkness. He doesn't need to negotiate with your despair. He doesn't need to convince your pain to go away. He simply needs to be present. And his presence, by its very nature, begins to transform everything. Not all at once, not always instantly in a dramatic flash, but gradually, constantly, inevitably. Because light always overcomes darkness. But here's what this means for you on an ordinary Tuesday. It means you don't need to wait until you feel more spiritual to come close to God. You don't need to fix your life first. You don't need to have your faith strengthened or your emotions under control. You can come exactly as you are: tired, confused, questioning, doubting, crying in the car, barely able to keep your eyes open in prayer, feeling absolutely nothing when you read the Bible. You can come like this. Because Christ's light doesn't depend on the state of your heart. It transforms the state of your heart. You know that verse everyone loves to quote, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest," Matthew 11:28. We usually think of this verse as a gentle invitation, a nice offer. But have you ever stopped to think about who Jesus was inviting? The weary, the burdened, not those who've already rested and are now ready to work for him, not those who've already figured everything out and now want to grow more. The weary, those at the end, those who can't take anymore. He's not saying, fix your life and then come. He's saying, come weary, come burdened, come broken, and I will give you rest. Not you'll find strength to get up on your own and then I'll help you with the rest. Not you'll overcome half problems and I'll handle the other half. No, I will give you rest. You just need to come. And this rest he offers isn't just a longer nap or a vacation. It's rest for the soul. It's rest from trying to be good enough. It's rest from trying to prove your worth. It's rest from carrying all the guilt, all the pressure, all the weight of thinking everything depends on you. It's the kind of rest you feel when you finally stop fighting and let someone stronger carry you. Have you ever seen a small child who's exhausted but keeps insisting, "I can do it myself, I'm not tired"? She's stumbling, rubbing her eyes, clearly at the limit, but stubbornly refusing to admit she needs help. And then finally she gives up, raises her little arms and says, "Carry me, please." And the second you pick her up, she melts. Her body relaxes. Her head falls on your shoulder. Her breathing slows. That stubborn resistance gives way to complete rest. That's what Jesus is offering you. You've been fighting for so long. You've been trying to make everything work out. You've been carrying so much weight alone. And he's saying, "Daughter, you can stop now. You can rest. Let me carry you for a while." And the hardest thing for us strong women, independent women, women who've learned we can't depend on anyone, is to raise our arms and say, "I can't do this anymore. Please carry me." But it's exactly this surrender, this admission of weakness, this moment of "I can't" that makes room for, but he can. It's when you stop trying to generate your own light that you can finally receive his light. It's when you admit you're in darkness that Christ's light can finally truly reach you. Because while you're pretending you're okay, while you're trying to shine with your own strength, you don't have room to receive what he wants to give you. And you know what's amazing? When you finally let his light reach you, when you stop resisting and simply surrender to his presence, something begins to change. Not overnight always, not in a dramatic flash where suddenly everything makes sense and you never struggle again, but gradually, you begin to notice there's a strength sustaining you that isn't yours. You begin to have moments of peace that don't make sense, considering your circumstances. You begin to respond with patience in situations that would normally make you explode. You begin to see beauty in places where you only saw obligation before. It's like when the sun starts to rise. First, there's just a slight change in the tone of the sky, almost imperceptible. But if you pay attention, you notice the absolute black begins to give way to a very dark blue. And then gradually, almost hesitantly, the first lines of light begin to appear on the horizon, and before you know it, the entire sky is on fire with colors you didn't even know existed. Pink and orange and gold and purple, all mixed in a breathtaking display. And then finally, the sun breaks above the horizon and the day truly begins. Christ's light works like this in your life. It starts small. It starts subtle. A moment of hope here, a sigh of relief there, a different choice you wouldn't have been able to make before. A new perspective on an old situation. And you might not even notice at first, but the darkness is being pushed back. The light is growing, and one day you'll look back and realize, I'm not in the dark place I was anymore. Something changed. Not because I tried harder, but because I finally stopped, resisting the light that was trying to reach me all along. And here's something that will completely free you. This light isn't about you becoming perfect. It's not about you finally managing to wake up early to pray or read your Bible every day or never lose your patience again. The Lamb's light isn't waiting for you to fix your life before it shines in you. It shines through your imperfections. It shines through your brokenness. It shines through exactly the areas where you feel weakest. There's an ancient Japanese art called kintsugi when a piece of pottery breaks. Instead of throwing it away or trying to hide the breaks, they put the pieces back together using liquid gold. The result isn't a piece that looks new. It's a piece that's obviously broken, but the breaks are highlighted in gold, transformed into part of the beauty. The piece becomes more valuable, more unique, more beautiful because of the breaks, not despite them. That's what God does with you. Those broken parts you try to hide, those flaws you're ashamed of, those scars you think disqualify you, God isn't trying to hide them or pretend they don't exist. He's filling them with His light, with His grace, with His glory. He's transforming your brokenness into testimony, your weaknesses into places where His power can be seen most clearly, your scars into stories of redemption. Paul understood this. He had what he called a thorn in the flesh, 2 Corinthians 12-7. The Bible doesn't say exactly what it was, but it was something that bothered him, something he prayed 3 times asking God to remove. And do you know what God answered? My grace is sufficient for you, for my power is made perfect in weakness, 2 Corinthians 12:09. I'll remove it when you're strong enough to handle it, without, not try harder, and then I'll help you, but my power works best exactly in your weakness. And Paul's response? Therefore, I will boast all the more gladly about my weaknesses, so that Christ's power may rest on me, 2 Corinthians 12:09. Can you imagine that? Boasting in weakness? Celebrating the areas where you're not good enough? This goes against everything the world teaches us. The world says, hide your weaknesses, project strength, never let them see you sweat. But God's kingdom works in reverse. In God's kingdom, your weakness becomes the exact place where His power can be seen most clearly. So that day you lost your patience with your kids and then knelt down with them and asked forgiveness? That wasn't failure. That was Christ's light, giving you humility and teaching you to model grace for them. That moment when you were so overwhelmed you finally asked for help? That wasn't weakness. That was wisdom. That was you recognizing you weren't created to do everything alone. That day, you could barely pray a coherent sentence. Just whispered, help me, and kept going. That wasn't weak faith. That was pure faith, undiluted by pretty words or spiritual performance. That was you coming to God exactly as you were. And you know what He does with these honest, broken, desperate prayers? He values them more than 1,000 eloquent, well-constructed prayers from someone who's just performing. Because a broken and contrite heart, the Bible says, God will not despise Psalm 51-17. He doesn't reject it. He doesn't turn his face away. He comes near. He draws close. He meets you there. So maybe, just maybe, what you've been calling spiritual failure is actually the beginning of spiritual authenticity. Maybe what you've been calling weak faith is actually honest faith. Maybe what you've been seeing as your biggest deficiencies are actually the places where the Lamb's light is about to shine most intensely. Because when you stop trying to manufacture your own light, when you stop pretending you have it all under control, when you finally admit, I can't do this alone, you create space for the only light that never fails, never dims, never goes out. And that light, it doesn't come with demands. It comes with grace. It doesn't come with a list of requirements. It comes with an invitation. It doesn't come with judgment. It comes with love. The Lamb's light is Jesus saying, I know you're tired. I know you're struggling. I know you feel like you're failing. But look at me. I've already paid for everything. I've already accomplished everything. I've already won everything. And now I just want to walk with you. Not when you're ready, not when you have it all together. Now, as you are, tired and all. So here's my question for you. Will you let him? Will you stop resisting and let his light reach you where you actually are? Not where you think you should be, but where you truly are. Will you stop trying to impress him with your strength and simply let him sustain you in your weakness? Will you drop the I am fine mask and let him meet you in the real mess of your real life? Because I promise you, when you do that, when you stop fighting and simply rest in his presence, something will begin to change. Light will begin to penetrate the dark places. Grace will begin to soften the hard places. Peace will begin to calm the restless places. And slowly, surely, inexorably, you'll realize you're being transformed, not by your effort, but by his presence, not by your strength, but by his light. And one day, maybe when you're driving alone again, maybe when you're folding laundry, maybe when you're lying in bed before sleep, you'll realize something. You're different. That anxiety that used to consume you doesn't have the same power anymore. That anger that used to control you doesn't explode as easily. That sadness that used to pull you under doesn't drag you as deep. And you'll know without any doubt it wasn't you. It was him. It was the Lamb's light working silently, patiently, powerfully in you, transforming you from glory to glory, from light to light. And then you'll understand what Paul meant when he wrote, I no longer live, but Christ lives in me, Galatians 2:20. Not because you disappeared or lost your personality, but because you finally stopped trying to live in your own strength and started letting his life flow through you. You finally stopped trying to generate your own light and started reflecting his light. And that light you begin to reflect, it doesn't stay just in you, it overflows. Your kids begin to notice something different in you. Not perfection, but peace. Your husband begins to see something new in you. Not absence of struggle, but presence of grace. That friend who's also struggling begins to feel something when she's around you. Not judgment, but hope. Because light always spreads. It can never be contained. When you're being illuminated by Christ's presence, you inevitably begin to illuminate the spaces around you. Not in an arrogant or superior way. Not with perfection or pretense. But simply by being a woman who knows her weakness and knows his strength. By being a woman who was found in darkness and now carries the light. By being a woman who stops pretending and starts living authentically in grace. And that authenticity, that vulnerability transformed by grace, is one of the most powerful tools God uses to reach other hearts. Because people don't need another woman who seems to have it all together. They need a woman who admits she doesn't, but knows someone who does. They don't need more advice on how to be better. They need testimony about how God is faithful even when we're not. They don't need more spiritual performance. They need to see real faith in a real God who meets real people where they really are. And maybe, just maybe, that's God's plan for all this weariness, all this struggle, all this difficult season you're going through. Maybe he's preparing you not to be perfect, but to be real. Not to have all the answers, but to know the one who does. Not to never have hard days again, but to know where to find light even on the darkest days. Because one day, another woman will be where you are now. She'll be tired, confused, questioning, feeling like she's failing at everything, and she'll need to hear from someone who's been there. Someone who knows the darkness, that her story doesn't end there, that there's light, that there's hope, that there's a lamb whose light never goes out. So let me ask you one last time, how can you allow Christ's light to illuminate your choices today? Not tomorrow, not when you're stronger or more organized or more spiritual. Today, exactly as you are. Maybe it's stopping for 2 minutes before getting out of the car and saying, Jesus, I can't do this alone today. I need you. Maybe it's choosing to respond with gentleness in that situation that would normally make you react with anger. Maybe it's simply remembering in the midst of chaos that you're not alone, that there's a light shining even when you can't see it, that there's a presence sustaining you even when you can't feel it. And here's my final question, and I really want you to reflect on this and share in the comments, what's one small, practical way you can recognize Christ's presence in your daily routine? I'm not talking about adding one more thing to your already impossible list. I'm talking about recognizing Him where He already is. Maybe it's a moment of gratitude while you're making coffee. Maybe it's a silent prayer while you're driving. Maybe it's recognizing His hand in that hug from your child or that shared laugh with your husband. Share in the comments, because when we start recognizing the light, it becomes more visible. And when we share how we're seeing God in the simple things, we encourage each other to look for Him too. The Lamb's light is shining. It always has been. It always will be. The question isn't whether it's there, but whether we'll stop long enough to see it, whether we'll be honest enough to need it, whether we'll be brave enough to let it transform not just our moments of victory, but especially our moments of weakness. Because in the end, it's not about you becoming the perfect woman, the perfect mom, the perfect Christian. It's about you allowing the perfect light to shine through your imperfection. It's about you discovering that your brokenness doesn't disqualify you. It positions you perfectly to testify to Christ's redemptive power. It's about you learning that your weakness isn't an obstacle to God using you. It's an invitation for Him to demonstrate His strength. So take a deep breath. You don't need to have it all together. You don't need to do everything right. You don't need to be strong all the time. You just need to be willing to let the Lamb's light reach you where you really are. And when you do that, when you let go of pretense and simply position yourself before Him with honesty, something powerful happens. The light that seems so distant suddenly becomes near. The grace that seemed theoretical becomes tangible. The presence you thought you'd lost reveals it was there all along, patiently waiting for you to stop running long enough to notice it. The Lamb's light is shining, friend, even now, even in you. Let it shine.